So hi everyone, it's Mark here. I want to give you a little help for those who wanted a hackathon edition of how you can do some of the systems and to give yourself a more impactful type of solution as you get the judges and investors, etc., looking at your results here. So I'm going to give you sort of an abbreviated version of what we sometimes spend a whole semester doing in various systems analysis and design type classes that we teach. So, all right, the goal here, so it's always a good idea to have the end goal in mind. And for the hackathon, the most important thing that you're going to do is you're going to produce a video, and the video is going to be 4 minutes long. The Of course, it's a virtual hackathon, but what you're recreating here with this video is you're recreating the experience of at a live hackathon, having the judges come around to your table and then a bell 4 minutes to explain what the heck it is that you did. Now, the usual thing is people say, well, we spent a heck of a lot of time. We complicated what we did, so we should have more than 4 minutes time. But that's sort of a fact of life. And it's also called a elevator pitch, if you will. So being able to do what you need to say in 4 minutes time is really sort of the end goal here. And there's a certain art to it. Work backwards from this video that you're going to produce that you want the investors and whatnot to take a look at. So when you do this video, the parts of the video are going to be an introduction because they want who you are and who your group is. So you want to have a cool group name. You want to have a cool group logo. You want to have sort of a look, feel, brand that goes time, because if you have a nice image up on the screen, you can see what it is. You want to say what your group is and say what project is that you're interested in. Again, come up with something that in one sentence tells me what I need to know as far as a title of the project, so I can probably sort of piece together or get an idea of what you're doing just by looking at the project title. Also, each one of you, this is your moment of fame, so to speak. So you want to make sure that every member on your team has a chance to really look at the camera and say, hi, I'm Mark. And you want to say, want to make sure they remember who you are. And also it's your chance to say a little bit about yourself, not a lot, but just a little bit about yourself. So they say, what's this person's interest? What is their role in a group? So, a really doesn't have four people that are all the same. Really good group is going to have a diverse set of skills in the team, maybe somebody taking care of the user interface, somebody doing the project management, somebody doing the back-end coding, somebody taking care of, the web app, etc., the database. So figure out what your role is and also let the people understand what your passion is, because you want to make an impression here. That doesn't need to take long, but you need to do it, and it needs to be the first thing you do. Is you want to give the reviewers or anyone that watches your video an opportunity to explain what the problem is that you're trying to solve. If you think about the opening sessions today, this is really like it just was there over and over and over again about how problems present opportunities. And when it comes to the problem, you really need to use creativity in trying to identify ways of how can we tackle this problem? How can we tear this problem apart? And how can we tackle this problem maybe in ways that haven't been done before? So you want to get down to the details of the problem, not the generalities of the problem. I know COVID's a problem. I know the fact that businesses are going bankrupt is a problem. But what is a detailed business problem that you're going to try to crack here with your statement? And I'm going to show you there's something that you can use as a real sort of magical piece of work. It's called a problem statement. So if you can sort of boil down your thoughts into this problem statement, then you're going to be gold. So you might be into this thing about a minute now, talking about your group and introducing your problem. So you don't have to talk about it long, but you got to do it up front. Now that you've identified the problem, now you have to start talking about the solution. And really the solution that you guys are building doesn't necessarily exist. So what you have to do is you have to communicate a vision of the solution. A vision is something that, humans can do. It's when you're describing something that doesn't actually exist yet, but you describe it in enough detail so that the listeners can understand from what you're saying what it is, the solution is that you're looking to create. So that's why, you have to have something here about your vision for a solution. And again, we have a little bit of a magic formula for you. It says, here's how you can create a solution vision, or here's a template that you can follow to get one of these done for you. Now, you want to start to get into, there's generalities. So we really want to avoid the generalities because you're not going to be able to, boil the ocean or fix everything on the planet. So you have to get down to the specific domain of what you're going to do. And what happens next is you're going to need to show a demo. You're going to need to show a demo. Either it's a demo of like real live code, or it's like a demonstration and you're just acting something out, or it's a mock-up, or you've used pencil crayons and drawn something and you have some flashcards. I don't know, like it could be something that you want to act out, but it's going to be some kind of illustration that you're going to go through in the hackathon, and you're going to have to show that. So I think the way you lead into it is you talk about maybe the use cases or the problem domain that you want to solve, and give the audience here an idea of this use case story that you want to go through. You only have 4 minutes. So you know what you want to do is you want to have one, or you want to have two user stories that you're going to go through in this little sequence here, where you're going to act it out or show them some code, or you're going to do a mock-up, or depending on your level. So if you're on the programming side and you're a little bit more experienced, you'll probably take some pride in having some demonstration code available. If you're not a senior coder, you can come up with some mock-ups. If you're not a coder at all, it's okay. We still need to see what you have as far as what your vision is, and act it out. Finally, when you're done demoing something or showing something, showing the user story that you want to fix, then you can talk about, all right, now that I showed you this, here's sort of what we think in terms of feasibility. I'll describe what feasibility is for you, and also the rough business case. Because most of these guys as investors, they're going to be thinking about these things, and somehow or other there has to be like some kind of return on investment, some kind of way that it's going to pay back. Now, one of the big things that happens these days is that people underestimate the value of data. And if you look at the most valuable companies on the planet, the Googles and the Amazons, et cetera, you realize that what really makes them so valuable is they have all this data. So everyone is understanding more and more about the value of data. And so, think about that. Maybe that's something that you're capturing that's very valuable. Maybe you're saving some money to the merchant or whoever you're working with. Maybe you're providing opportunities to make more revenue. But somehow you got to figure out just a little bit here on what the business case is. And then you summarize it and you call to action and what are your next steps. Good idea always where to start with all this stuff. I always encourage all my students to really, the very first question you probably want to ask is segment that you're actually interested in here. And the very best place to go is you would go to what's called the North American Industry Classification System. You can just go, and what this means is that in the US and Canada and in Mexico, what the governments have decided to do to really get a handle on the statistics that make up what is a gross national product is to break down the market into more and more refined industry segment that a particular business is in. So no matter what the business is, it could be a profit, it could be a not-for-profit type of business, whether it's an accounting firm, whether it's a restaurant, whether it's a healthcare provider that you're talking about, whether it's a logistics company, trucking firm, whatever the company is, it's got an NEICS code. And I really sort of advise you to do this because first thing is you're going to start to limit the domain of the problem that you're interested in solving to a specific industry segment. What you're going to see is that as you go through these industry segments, if I look there, see utilities, construction, manufacturing, wholesale, retail, transportation. The thing is that each of these industries has completely different needs. So industries will have specific needs that are important to them that might not be important to other industries. And before you ever start working on a solution, you have to understand what industry it is. Once you can start to do more research into, well, how big is this salon? We're talking about hair salon. We're talking full service restaurant. How many of these are there? How much money do they make? Trends going on in this? Is it going up? Is it going down? How many people are employed with it? So all this kind of information starts to flow, quite easy to get that. Typically, once you sort of get an idea of what this segment is or what this business is that you're interested in, you start to talk about mission and goals. So note that it's a good way to break down the analysis of a particular business. So you might ask yourself, well, if I'm going to be, working with a nail salon, what mission? What is their goal? And the differences here is that a mission is really, why should you sort of exist, and like what's your reason for being. A goal is something that if you're a for-profit company, or if you're a for-profit company, then well, that's probably the goal. So what sort of goals do they have? And then objectives are things that you need to do to actually achieve the goal that you gave yourself. So if your goal, for instance, is to make more, to get a higher paying job, that's a very nice goal, but you might have to do something on the way to get that higher paying job. And so maybe you decided you're going to go to the college and take a particular program, or you're going to join, in the hackathon because it's going to get you experience, it's going to get you a higher paying job. So that's sort of how we differentiate these things. And that's quite good, to understand whatever that business is you're looking at, what's the mission, what goals do we have there, and what objectives is. We talked about businesses, and we talked about, okay, there's all kinds of different business. A nail salon is different. A restaurant is different than an accounting firm. An accounting firm is different than a construction company. A construction company, and a car manufacturer. So they're all different firms. But then when we look at a company, we see that even though, so we might call what I just talked about, vertical marketplaces, so vertical sort of up and down, but we also have another thing called horizontal, and that is where it doesn't matter what company you have, you always have these kind of functions that you have to do. So what this is saying is that no matter what your company is, they could be, it could be a nail salon, it could be an accounting firm, it can be a construction company, it can be a hospital, it could be a regional health clinic, it could be a vet office, whatever. All companies, big or small, have to, do finance. They have to do human resources. They have to do sales. They have to do marketing. They have to do manufacturing. They have to do operations. They have to do distribution. And each one of these different functions in the business has different goals associated with it. So just because, a company might have some goal like to make money, doesn't mean that the salesperson and the marketing person and the operations person and the distribution person within that company all have the same goals. Each one has goals that are related to their particular business function. So the reason I'm saying this is because for you to have a successful entry here, you want to actually look within the company and say, who are going to be the actual stakeholders within that company that are going to be using and benefiting from your system. And you can see here, by the way, I broke this down. Person that's in the finance department, balance the book. Person that's working talent. Person that's working in the sales department, the goal is to generate revenue. Okay, so all these things are going to help to lead you to, what are the actual is when you have something that maybe is an example of an existing business or some kind of idea that you have in the future, is sometimes they talk about, well, you want to do like an analysis and go strengths and weaknesses or something like this. That, well, a good way to rigorously sort of break down something is to do a SWOT analysis. And a SWOT analysis means that whatever thing that you have in mind, or the situation that is there, or the solution that you might want to do in the future, you can look at, what are the strengths? What is the strength of this particular business today? What are weaknesses? So things where the business might be vulnerable. What are opportunities where we might be able to turn over this vulnerability, and what are threats? And threats might be things that could happen if you don't do anything. The whole purpose of this hackathon is that this COVID thing has problem in and of itself, and has exposed many weaknesses that businesses have got. So now that businesses have all weaknesses exposed and bare, and now their very existence is at threat, they might have opportunities here that you're providing them for, maybe to recover the business or to do better. And then the threat obviously is, if they don't do anything, if they just choose to ignore this, or hope that Justin Trudeau sends them more money in the mail or something like this, that the situation might not get better. So doing a SWOT analysis idea. Now at the end of it, and you're going to do a good job here if you can tell me what kind of system it is that you guys want to build for your client. So we're going to build a software system, or we're going to build an end-to-end software system. What's good is that you understand enough about your customer's problem and about who's using it to be able to tell me exactly what type of a system it is that you're building. And you can see here in this particular chart that what I've done is I started to not just say, well, you want to build a system or you want to build a computer system. I've started to identify very specific things. So notice here that the accounting department might be interested in asset tracking, or accounting system, or audit system, or accounts payable system. Human resources might be, like you see there, we have really clearly defined challenge sets for recruitment, but that may also involve retention, or there may be knowledge, you can learn new information, or maybe it's something more mundane, like how do we do the payroll? Sales systems includes CRM. Many of you are dealing with point of sale, B2B, B2C, forecasting, channel management, partner management, etc. So you see here, I'd like you to, when you're thinking of your final presentation, this isn't something that needs to take, 2 minutes of your time. This is just something where you identify the right word that describes the type of solution that you're building. When it comes to feasibility, whoever's looking at your solution says, this is feasible. Feasible meaning this is something that could be done. And feasibility means you can divide it into 4 things. First is, it makes economic sense. So economic sense means, hey, look, this can be done, and there's some kind of finite amount of money that it costs, and then at the end of this, somehow that money is going to come back. Technical feasibility means the technology that's required to do this is feasible. It exists. And a big thing about technical feasibility is things that were like impossible to consider years ago, like the ability to take a picture and have somebody recognize, whether it's a duck or a cat or a bottle, or what information is on there, do facial recognition and things like that. This is completely impossible 20 years ago. 10 years ago even seemed like a dream. Now we do these kinds of things. So technology feasibility has upgraded, and everyday businesses can start using technology that might have been completely out of reach or infeasible years ago, like artificial intelligence and machine learning, deep learning, and things like this. Schedule means, can it be done in time? So you might have a COVID solution that is fantastic, but your estimated time to deliver this is 10 years from now, so that might not make a lot of sense. So what's going to happen for you is there will be something here that the investors are going to look at that says, hey, look, if you can get this thing out in the next couple of weeks, months, etc., then we're interested. And then operational feasibility is something that says, often software developers sort of suffer from a little bit of a condition where they think their job is done when the code is developed. But that's sort of like saying your job is done as a parent when the baby is born. Like, there's a lot more to go after the software is developed, and that is what do you need to do to make the software operational to actually use it in production? And so you want to look at operational feasibility as well. This is usually when we have students doing projects, this is usually one of the biggest problems that as a developer you think you're done because you got some code to finally work, and now you throw it over the wall. So gather requirements, and you have to gather the requirements from the stakeholders. Now, I think what you really have to take advantage of in the hackathon is that it's sometimes a little hard to picture what the user actually needs. You try to read it in a textbook, and it all comes to you when you actually talk to a real user, a real doctor, a real practitioner, a real nurse, a real PSW, a real hairdresser, a real person working, as a barber. It talking to actual stakeholders and getting the requirements from them. There's nothing like it. So there's two things that you can do. One is to make sure that during the week, because we have what we call mentors available, and mentors should be subject matter experts. Like they should really understand what they are, maybe customers, or they really work very closely with the customers. So you can ask them, hey, what's it like? What do you do on an everyday basis? What are your problems? Is this a problem that you have? Is my solution going to solve your problem? And some of the I understand have actually gone out on their own. So people gone out on their own and visited, let's say their MP or somebody that's working in the city council and talking to them about how they make decisions to open stores or how they're interacting with COVID data that comes from the public data sets. So you won't believe how much you gain instead of just looking at a textbook or Googling something or thinking about it in your head or listening to some prof talk about it, how much you gain by actually talking to real stakeholders. So you can do all kinds of stakeholder analysis with them after, but what you're hopefully ready to do after this is to come up with this problem statement that I talk about. So this would be, if you can get a point in your video where you can say, here's the problem that we have. Here is the stakeholders that it affects. The impact of this problem to the stakeholder is as follows. And we feel that we can solve this problem with a solution and that's when you go back to, the stuff I talked about with the system request, etc. So now all that homework that you did should be able to help you fill in this problem statement. If you got the problem statement nailed down, but it doesn't roll off your tongue, then you can just, change the structure of these sentences a little bit. But this is here as a framework to help you sort of get to the root of, and you see there's a fantastic thing here. You nailed down the problem, you identified the stakeholders, you've told me what the impact is, so this is going to help me later on come up with the business case and the feasibility, and you've started to outline what your solution is going to do, and you've given me a category that it belongs in. Now, some of you, are computer science and systems analyst students, so this has all come natural to you. You know what UML is. There's class diagrams, there's use cases, there's all this kind of stuff to sort of model the behavior and the structure. And some of you are not computer students, so I don't really want this to, scare you in any way. But the idea is somehow now we have to go and look at the detail. We want to look at the minutia of what actually has to get done to solve this problem. To think of it, a good way to think of what eventually becomes things like use cases and things like class diagrams is you want to sort of figure out what the fundamental business processes are that are going on that you may need to do something strong with. And what you want to look for is two things. One is you want to look for verbs, so those are things that you do. And the second thing is you want to look for nouns, so those are things that you do it to. So now I'm explaining it sort of in layperson language. To a computer programmer, what it really means is you want to look at the classes and you want to look at the methods. You want to look at the stuff that we got to store and how it's structured, and you got to look at what it is exactly that we want to do. Well, it starts, typically it starts with CRUD. It starts with create, read, update, delete. Those are 4 really important things that you have to do. And you want to create, read, update, delete. What is it that you want to create, read, update, delete? Is it an invoice? Is it a report? Is it an order? You know what? So you're looking at this verb noun combination, and those things help you to get the what are called use cases started. So some of you may go down this line of looking up or trying to figure out and describe what the use cases are going to be. There's a good notation for doing that. And some of you are looking at this going, I don't know what he's talking about. So if that's the case, what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to go and Google a thing called user stories. So go look up what a user story is, and it's going to tell you that it's a story about, as a, and it's a certain stakeholder group, I want to, and it tells you about a goal that you have, so that I can, and then it tells you what you'd like to accomplish. So there's a sort of a format of writing up these things, and it's these use cases and user stories that you want to, in your demonstration to the client, you want to walk customer through so that they see. So a use case is an everyday story. So let's say I have a user story here. I'm an elderly widow living by myself in my house, and I'm fearful of the COVID, and I have a list of errands that I need to run today. I'd really like to have somebody that I trust run these errands for me, so that I don't get as much exposure, or that my risk isn't as high for contacting the COVID virus. So that might be something that you want to do, or you might want to say, as a patron, I want to go to get my nails done, because they've gotten sort of gangly looking, and I'd like to do that though in an environment where safe. And I want to do it in an environment where I'm going to minimize the contact that I'm going to have when I pay for it. So you want to go through, so look this up on Google, Google that one a little bit, and come up with what you think are the most compelling user stories, and that's what you want to go through in your video. All right, I might do another whole video dedicated to that if you guys request it. Okay, so there might be constraints then that happen here. So constraints and business rules that you might want to apply. But at the end of all this, if you can create this thing here, which is what I'll call a solution vision, you can combine it with the problem statement, or, it can be its own thing. But look at how this thing is formatted now. You say for, and here you give me the target customer that you have. You say who, and now you describe the statement, the need or the opportunity that you have. The, and it's very clever for you guys to have a name for your team and also a name for your product or the project that you're actually doing. So you talk about what this thing is that you're building and what the product category is that it belongs to. So remember, go back to, don't just say it's a software system. Tell me what it really is. Tell me it's a customer relationship management system or a point of sale system, or tell me what it really is. And then you say that, and here you gave me an idea of what the benefit is of a client using your solution and a compelling reason that I would want to use this versus anyone else. Unlike, if you're doing some kind of delivery app, you're going to be picking on Skip the Dishes or Uber Eats and the ridiculous fees that they charge and da 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 da. And then you say what the primary differentiator is. What's your product do that's different from what's going on today or what the competitors have out there? And this is where you get your idea. So then after this, after you got to this point, now you just wrap up, right? You wrap up how you like to wrap up. Maybe reiterate what you have here. Maybe say, next steps, we're looking forward to speaking to you. We're looking forward to telling you more, etc. Wrap it up how you feel you want to wrap it up. Make sure that your mentor or the customer or the judge or whoever's looking at this remembers you. All right, so that's it. I'll provide you with, you guys can come and meet with me. I'm happy to book some time on Teams to look at your solution, give me my own sort of feedback on this. And I'm going to do another presentation later on in the week about how I think you can structure a winning presentation. All right. So that's it for today. Thank you. Good luck.